let me bring in the man of the hour, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. David C. Smalley. David, come on down. You are the next guest on the Bryce is Right.
Hey, it's good to be on the show with the best logo in atheism. Sexy stuff. I love it. Probably some form of copyright infringement. I'm not sure. Not here to judge, but it's beautiful. I love it.
I was very careful. We did take that into consideration.
That font is really close, but I think it's amazing. It really is impressive.
How did you find this show? Because you super chatted us. I think you were one of our first ever super chats, at least the first significant one. So
I was on. So I have an Apple TV, and I was on my TV, and I opened YouTube, and you guys were live, and the algorithm was like, "Hey, you'll probably like this." And it just showed you to me. So I clicked on it, and I saw that it was something that Pasta was involved with. So I texted him, and I was like, "This is a really cool chat. What's the deal here?" And he gave me a brief rundown. So I popped on and joined and started watching. And then I had a question, and I was like, "I want to ask a question, but also want to be supportive of the effort. So let me ask the question and do a super chat." And I think the question had to do with, talking with my my family members, because when I go back home to Texas, a lot of people don't know this about me. A lot of people don't know this about me. This is a terrible time for this to pop up. A lot of people don't know this about me, but when I go back home, it's only it's me, my daughter, my mom, and my sister are the only 4 white people there. The other 11 or 12 people are either mixed or black, and so when we get into discussions about religion or politics or whatever, it's really odd because, like, my brother-in-law, he's not a conservative. He's definitely not. I'm 95% sure he's a liberal. But he kind of argues like on behalf of police with the whole comply or die situation.
And he's black.
And he's black, yeah. And it's I found myself like arguing on behalf of BLM to a black man who was like, "Man, put your hands up and you won't die. It's that simple." And I was going, "Man, it shouldn't be comply or die. That stuff doesn't come with the death penalty." And he's like, "I ain't never had a problem with cops because I do what the hell they say." And I found myself butting heads with him. And at some point I was like, this is odd. Like I feel like I shouldn't be in this situation. Am I saying too much? Should I just shut up and drop it? And anytime the religious thing have come up, I've noticed either with his family or friends that eventually race comes up if the Christian happens to be black, because of how important the church was in the black community and in the abolition of slavery, and with the Underground Railroad and the churches and all of that. So at some point, as I'm challenging their faith, we will inevitably get to a point where they say, "It's a part of my culture. Shut your mouth. It's not your place to separate me from my blackness," right? And they will include their Christianity as part of that blackness. And I didn't really know how to deal with that. So I asked that question in the super chat, and I thought you guys were basically like, that's not your job to do. Like, don't even fight that battle. And I thought that's pretty good advice. So
yeah, and I think it was a genius thing for you because it never occurs to me as a black man, how might a white person deal with a situation like this, dealing with a black person who is defending, the Christianity or defending, police, or not acknowledging any of this. If the black person is the conservative and you are the liberal, that would be an awkward situation because you would feel like you probably don't even have permission to ask this question. But
right.
It's a genius thing of you to do, to ask it in kind of a neutral way, so that, because fuck, I can ask it, and I just broke the fuck rule, so now you can say it.
Well, you said it twice. Now you took up both of them.
So, yeah, and just for reference, for anyone who's watching, that was the white religion in Black America, I think is the name of the episode. It was one of my first live episodes, so go back and watch that if you haven't seen it, because I did get a lot of positive feedback from that episode. So
really good.
Let's turn, speaking of F-bombs, let me ask you a question about comedy. First of all, how long have you been a professional comedian? Like, how long have you been actually getting paid for this? 2016
is when I first got paid to do comedy. And that's one of the things that is the hardest thing about it is getting the atheist listening audience to understand, to believe that I'm actually a comedian. They're like, oh, this guy calls himself a comic. I've seen that. I'm like, oh, I literally, like, for 2.5 years before the zombie apocalypse, for 2.5 years, I had my own show at the Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard, like every month, and I was paid to do stand-up comedy. And then I've had two, I would say national tours. They were more Southwest United States, where I did like 15 or 16 gigs throughout, over a 3-4 week period or whatever. And all my tour dates are on, davidcsmalley.com. You click comedy, and there's clips there and all my tour dates. And it's so funny that, when someone gets in their mind that you're just this, podcaster, or you're just this skeptic guy who does this one thing, you get kind of, locked into their mind. You get typecast in sort of a way in their mind, and they go, no, I can't see you as a comic. Well, come to a show. Come to a comedy show. I have some coming up, and you're welcome to come to the comedy shows. So, started in 2016 at the Reason Rally, actually. I was asked to MC a comedy show, and they were like, we think your audience would really want to come see you, as the host, so do it. And I had done comedy like 12 years before in Dallas one time, and it didn't go very well. And I was like, can I write like 5 minutes of comedy and do like 5 minutes at the top and then bring people in? And they were like, sure. And it was an easy out for me, because as the MC, if at any point my jokes were bombing, I could just say, all right, you guys ready for the actual comedians? And that would get a laugh. And then I could just bring up the next comedian. I could bail on my set anytime I wanted. So it was really easy. I was really comfortable. And I did the whole 5 minutes. And I continued to lay jokes out in between each comedian. And I had the time of my life. And that I was like, I need to do more of this. So as soon as I moved to LA at the end of 2016, or beginning of 2017, technically, within a couple of months, I did my launch party for the podcast at the Comedy Store, and we sold out within 4 hours. And the people at the Comedy Store, the bookers, were coming up to us going, no disrespect, but who the hell are you? Like, why are you selling out these tickets and you're not this known comedian? And I was like, yeah, I'm not a comedian. I just have this podcast audience that's really dedicated and awesome people. And they were like, you want to do another show next month? And I said, sure. And I did another show next month, and we sold out within 24 hours. And they were like, how about you do a monthly show? And I went, okay. And for 2.5 years, that's what I did. And that really allowed me to work on my stand-up and polish it and get it cleaned up. And I got kind of a little bit of a head start, where a lot of comedians just have to go to these terrible open mic nights and deal with 4 comedians in the room and nobody else, as to where I got to work through my stuff hosting for celebrities. So like Theo Vaughn would come in, Jamie Kennedy, Jay Moore, Craig Robinson. They would pop in and do these shows. So we had a packed crowd. I was booking these guys from contacts I'd made at the Comedy Store, and I got to work on my 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes until I developed my own, 30, 45-minute set. So I was fortunate in that route that my podcast paved the way for me to be able to do stand-up in front of real audiences and get a real reaction to the jokes, as opposed to doing stand-up comedy just for comedians, because that sucks.
So what made you decide to do comedy in the first place? Like, how old were you when you were like, I'm funny, I'm going to be a comedian? Like,
Dude,
how did that start?
My dad used to show me Richard Pryor tapes when I was 7 years old. And
that's the little suspect for a parent.
He didn't give a damn about, he would pause it and explain. He'd be like, hold on, you see a butthole, it ain't supposed to stretch like that. He would like stop it and explain the joke to me. I learned about the crack pipe exploding on his face. And Red Fox and Richard Pryor were two of my first people where I went, wait, these dudes get paid for this? Because this is insane. This is so much fun. And my dad was a huge fan of stand-up comedy. My dad was kind of a comedian that never made it to the stage. He would just plant little joke bombs in my head, and that wouldn't go off for 7 years. I wouldn't get the joke for 7 years. He told me I was 4 years old, and he pulled me aside, and he was dead serious. And he goes, David, when you were born, there were twins. It was a little boy and a turd. And sadly, the little boy died. Go play.
Oh my God.
And I was just thought I was a walking piece of shit until I was like 11. And then one day it just hit me, and I was like, that son of a bitch. Like he would mess with me, stuff like that. And I had a huge inspiration to get into stand-up comedy. My mom is really quick-witted. She's not super funny, but she's really quick on her feet. And my dad was really funny, but not super quick-witted. And I think somehow I was able to get a little bit of both. And it's kind of the perfect storm for stand-up comedy.